Alright guys, what's up? Bando back. Back with the 454, but she's together. So sorry I didn't shoot a whole lot after the timing cover got off. I was kind of busy putting it back together, but really the timing wasn't off. So pretty much to really go over this in a little bit better detail, even though the cover's on the engine. Pretty much there's two camshafts. You got an exhaust and intake, and pretty much this is the timing cover. So you pull this off and you pull this off. Use a 14mm socket through this hole with a ratchet and crank it, clockwise. And then this hole is where the timing mark's at. You want to get this mark where there's a C mark and there's a little line, so you line it up with this little groove that's in here underneath this cover, obviously. That'll set your camshafts, or if your timing is correct, we'll set it in the right spot. So pretty much you have the exhaust camshaft and then the intake camshaft. And I'll post a picture right here of what the markings are supposed to look like, and I'll leave a link in the description for the manual that if you guys need a copy of the manual, it's online, and it's for pretty much any EN 450 or 454 LTD from 1985 to like 1990, whatever, 7, 8, I have no idea when they stopped making them, but I checked the timing with my mechanic, and he said it was fine, and we looked at it. The markings lined up where they were supposed to line up, and everything looked good, so I torqued everything back down to spec, what they were supposed to be. Also, check some other miscellaneous things, put the oil back in the bike, coolant back in the bike, and the only thing I forgot was when I put everything back together was the chain tensioner, the two bolts that are right there. I forgot to tighten them up, so be sure to check that. And if you have a manual chain tensioner like I do, pretty much just finger tighten it all the way in until you feel resistance, and you want to go like maybe a quarter or half a turn more, and that should be fine. And then tighten your locking nut. If you have a stock chain tensioner, they just say turn your screwdriver or your flathead screwdriver clockwise until it starts to spring back, and then it'll auto adjust to the chain and keep the tension if it's working correctly. Mine I don't think was working correctly, so that's why I got a new one. Stupid fly. So anyway, and then I was also having starting problems with the bike, so I was wondering, is it the starter? I was thinking maybe it was the battery, or the kill switch was messed up, because I was having problems. I would hit the button, nothing happens. But in reality, it was a couple of things that I found. So me being the proactive person that I am, I went ahead and replaced the starter solenoid and the starter itself, even though the bike started pretty much fine with the stock setting. Well, turns out this one here, if you notice, there's a clip right here to hold this tab in. Now, the new starter solenoid did not have this clip for this two-prong tab that was supposed to go in there. It was just two little stick-ons that you would slide on. So what would have happened was as I was riding the bike around after I had rebuilt it, this tab would back itself off the prongs due to the vibration for the bike shaking back and forth, thus would cause the starter solenoid to disengage, and it would only partially work, where if you hit the starter button, the solenoid would click open, but the power would not be sent through here to then trigger the starter motor to turn it over. So once I figured that out, I put the old starter solenoid back on the bike. So far, no issues in that regard as of starting that up, so that was really good. The other problem I had, which again I didn't know what was going on, I thought the kill switch was bad. I was flipping the kill switch on run and hitting the starter button with the key on, and nothing was happening. The bike was just not doing anything. There was no clicking, no nothing. Turns out my ignition is faulty, so sometimes when I turn the ignition, sometimes it kind of goes past the on point, which you notice right here. It kind of sometimes will turn past it. With the old key anyway, it used to do that. In that regard, because it was, obviously if you push the key down and you turn it to the right here, it goes, I don't know, it won't go all the way now, will it? But anyway, it's supposed to go into parking mode, which it just did before, but for some reason it's just refusing to do it right now, because it's stiff. It's a new key. It does work. I just had it in that mode earlier, which really all it does is it just turns on the rear tail light, I guess, if you're parked up somewhere. So it lets so that way the bike's not running. But however, you hit the button and nothing would happen. So what I did was I wiggled the key around in the ignition, and hit the button, and sure enough, the bike would start up. And I was like, really? I'm like, out of all things, the ignition would be the problem. So I just had bought two off an 87 on eBay. I bought this grip, or this control, and this control on the other side. So I may swap them out. I don't know, because this screw is kind of stripped in here. Don't know if I'm going to be able to get them out without breaking it or stripping it. Hopefully if I get an impact, I might be able to get this out of here. But if they're in better shape and the graphics look better in that, I may just unplug them and switch them out from the headlight housing. I might just switch everything over. Also came with the choke and the throttle cables too when I bought it, and I got it all for 40 bucks from a guy in Iowa stripping down an 87 as a parts bike. I'm not sure why, but it just happened to be he was stripping it down, so maybe it had a blown motor or something. I said the bike ran perfectly fine, so I'm not sure why he was stripping it down, but it is what it is. So, well, what else did I do to the bike while it was apart and now back together? Well, you can see I have the seat on there. Obviously, you see this massive hole, and it's all, the foam is all getting ripped up here, which is, again, considering the seat is 10 years older than I am, it's in pretty decent shape, being it's still pretty much together. There's a hole here a little bit. This backrest I also bought separately. Turns out that I still got to pull that sticker off of that, but I had to swap the backrest over because the original backrest are the side rails on this bike. The right one here, these two bolt holes were stripped that were going right here. This, obviously, these four connect the backrest to the bar for the sissy bar, and then these two connect the seat. Well, these two bolt holes were stripped. I could not get these two screws to thread in there more than 2 or 3 turns. So I figured they were stripped out. So I had these lying around when I bought this backrest because this came all as one piece. So I threw them on there, and sure enough, everything went together fine and fits perfectly. So that's great. I also got a reflector for this side of the bike, which looks fantastic. So now it matches the other side. Obviously, you see on both sides the radiator guard is on there. And you can also see all these screws are now black. These are brand new screws that I had bought from Babbitt's Kawasaki in Michigan. I mean, all these stock parts mainly I bought that I could find off of Babbitt's, I did purchase through them. And they're great if you need nuts and bolts and miscellaneous small things. They mostly have most of the stuff you need. The bigger stuff, however, they're not going to have like your side covers, your seat, or your backrest. They do actually have the grips, surprisingly, and the turn signals. The headlight bulbs and stuff like that. Some other stuff, the horn, they have some other stuff in like carburetor parts and all that stuff, but they just, most of the stuff, the bigger stuff, you know, you're not going to find a whole exhaust on Babbitt's. You'll find the bolts and the flanges and that, but if you got to buy the whole thing, you got to go on eBay. This thing, however, I need to figure out what's going on with this. This shifter linkage is fucked. It's just, it works, but see how loose that is? And I don't know why that is. I tried adjusting the shifter shaft bar here back and forth. I have it at the max setting, and it's outward, and it's still very loose. So I went ahead and bought another shifter shaft there, or the shifter linkage shaft there, to see if maybe that bar is bent or whatever the case may be. But, you know, I can deal with it. The bike still runs fine, and it still shifts through all 6 gears. I really don't have an issue with that. It's just mainly try to get your foot under there to shift up is kind of a pain in the ass. I also got a clamp. This is just a temporary clamp here. I got the actual clamp that's supposed to go on the back down here. This was missing, so I'm going to buy another one. I have it on the way with the bolt. I have the exhaust gaskets, which I should have bought 3, but I only bought 2 because I bought 1 for each pipe. I didn't realize there was a third one under here in the middle, but we'll see how it goes. The pipes seem to be rattling. There is not a lot of chain slap anymore, or really hard idle. Sometimes it kind of misses on startup a little bit, but you know, it is what it is. You figure you're looking at a 35-year-old bike almost, and it's got 30,000 miles, and it's been very poorly maintained by its previous owners, unfortunately. Whoever kept it, I mean, you can see the oxidation on the caliper and the wheels and the rotor. It's just, the funny thing is the tires and the rotors on the front here and the drum brake on the rear, they're actually in good shape themselves. It's just the oxidation from the metal from just being left out in the sun and the rain and the elements just ate away at all this finish, and it's really a shame. But as long as the bike works, that's what I'm really concerned about. I'm going to clean up the looks as best I can over time. I'm not going to make it 100% original restore and try to buy every single part that's bad on this bike. I just want something to have fun on and have my friends have fun on. And that's kind of what I bought this bike for. I bought this bike for not only myself to enjoy it, but for my friends to enjoy it, and have them come over, and if they have a license and they want to ride the bike, go at it. I mean, it's my project bike that I paid like $500 for, and probably put about $500 or $600 in parts in it just to kind of dick around and to rebuild as a side project. And like I said, I like Jimmy's, which is over here, which has turned out really fantastic too, but I liked his so much, and this one was in the next town over, and I'm just like, you know what, why not? Let's make another adventure out of it. So, but as you can see, I'll just demonstrate. Let's see if the key actually still works or not. But turn the key, hit it on run here, hit the button. And it struggled a little bit there. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. But she turns over. She doesn't like the cold very much though. You gotta wait till the engine's at operating temperature really to rev it high. The choke actually does work. Surprisingly, I thought the choke was messed up and it wasn't working, but as you can see, if you pull the choke in, look at the RPM gauge, it should start to go up a little bit, maybe. Maybe not, I don't know. Maybe it's just gotta get a little bit more warmed up. But yeah, no more bogginess really. I mean, you can hear that the chain isn't really, there really is no chain slap anymore from the timing chain or rattles or anything like that in the engine. So I'm really happy about that. I checked the fuel tank. I actually pulled this petcock off. Everything in here is clean all the way through the carbs. I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about anything with rust getting into the motor. Radiator fan kicks on. The coolant's been flushing through the water pump. Everything just looks so freaking awesome on this bike. But I'm just very happy how it runs, and I rode it around the block a few times, and everything is just looking great. So I'll make another video probably in a bit once I get the other parts in, like the exhaust gaskets and the also, I'm going to replace this foot peg. I got all new hardware to go in this foot peg because this thing is literally bolted on here. So we're going to get new hardware because this thing is just flopping around. It falls down every time I ride the bike. But I really love this thing. I really love this thing. I really enjoy, for what it was worth and what I put into it, I really enjoy how it turned out. I also put 2 new taillight bulbs and the license plate bulb in there. I don't know if I mentioned. I know I mentioned the license plate bulb because this was burned out, but this right filament for the running light was burned out. I figured if I'm going to replace one, I'm going to swap them both, and I'm glad I did because it looks a lot brighter. Everything just looks, for its age, looks good. The only major thing left, besides getting the whatever miscellaneous parts I need, which include the parts for the foot peg, the parts for the exhaust, for the 2 gaskets, the clamp on that other side for that left pipe so I could pull that other clamp off. The only thing is I need a clutch cable because this clutch cable, you can't really see it, but it rested up against this pipe, and it's the sheeting here, this plastic bit here, is all melted away and charred, so I have to replace that because it's very stiff now. If you try to pull the clutch in, you won't notice it on camera, but it's kind of like, you can see how it's like slowly, it's kind of click, 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 click like that. So it's very stiff to pull the clutch in. So I got another one coming off eBay. It was $13, brand new from Wisconsin. So I got that coming. I got these, pods coming to replace these if I want to. I may not replace them because there really is no need if all the buttons work, and also I fixed the horn also. So the horn works and it's loud as shit. The only thing is sometimes it gets out of tune, but it still works. I really don't have an issue with it. But yeah, everything is good. I know I've been rambling for 15 minutes, but I'm really stoked about this thing. Really excited to start riding this thing and get it plated and ready to go. So hope you guys enjoyed. Got more videos coming, so stay tuned.